We're joined today by Andrew Scott. He's a cabin crew. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're talking to people who are in essential services, who are our unsung heroes. I mean, when we talk about frontliners, we always talk about the medical personnels, but a lot of other jobs as well are frontliners, and you are our unsung hero. And tell us about your job, first of all.
Well, my job's amazing, okay, what I do and how we do it. And there are so many things I can tell you guys about and I can go ranting out all day. But initially, what's good about our job is that it's a stable income, okay? There's stability in the job and there's a lot of purpose to it. Being frontliners and bringing back home, you're dealing with a lot of people every day, hundreds of people every day, thousands of people a weekend. You get to learn a lot about, people skills and what it takes to be responsible as an adult, and you are responsible for these people and you're responsible for yourself. And there's a lot to it. And what would you guys like to know?
So it's not just about traveling the world for you when you first took up the job as a cabin crew?
Initially, yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to travel the world for free and see places? And personally, for me, that I wanted to travel the world because I wanted to grow and learn about a lot of things. But initially, when I first started, there was a lot of challenges that you have to face when you're in trainings and waking up and going to train for the next 42 days. Yeah. The 42 days you'll be in training and then you come out of it and there's procedures and that's our manual, our guide. And, we have to follow on through and there's so much to it.
Do you have to initially when you... Like, do you have to know everything?
Yeah. Initially, but it's not about memorizing. I always tell, when you first start, that school mentality where you go, you got to memorize it. And you got to be okay, word by word. But it's actually more of understanding why. And that helps you to get past a lot of, or understand when you're having briefing with your crew. So you understand what you're doing.
Is this your dream job, though? I mean, were you doing something else? What were you doing before this?
Initially, I was a part-time barista and a part-time model. So I used to do some TVCs aside and just to, earn a bit. And I love making coffee. I love cooking. So initially, this wasn't really a dream job for me, but I saw the stability in it. And I started to realize that it gave me a sense of purpose, what I was doing and why I was doing what I did. So, yeah.
I've always wondered, do you have to work up the ranks? Like, for example, when you first join as a cabin crew, you are only allowed to fly domestic. And then after that, after 2 or 3 years, then only you are allowed to fly international. Is that how it works?
No, Bel, that's not how it works. It's initially when you come out of training, they would mix your flights. So, okay, we've got this thing called sectors. So sectors is basically from Kuala Lumpur to Singapore. Okay, that's one sector. Singapore to Kuala Lumpur, that's 2 sectors. And then we only have, for Kuala Lumpur, we only have 4 sectors, like our home base here. There's only 4 sectors. And it's based on the hours that you have. So, for example, I could be flying to Langkawi and back, and then I'll be flying to Singapore and back. So that's 4 sectors. And roughly the time that it takes for me to start work, the moment you report, and the time that you go back would be roughly about sometimes 8 hours, sometimes 12 hours, but nothing more than 13 or 14 hours with delays included. So
the maximum sector per day is 4. Is that it?
Yeah, for us it's 4 sectors.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it doesn't matter if you're new or you're experienced, you get to fly all routes as well.
Yes, the routes that throughout ASEAN, the ASEAN routes, that's for AK. I'm in AK. Okay. So that's more into, we are called short haul flights. So we do short haul, the turnarounds. Okay. So we send you guys, pick up the next people, a set of people, and we fly back. Asia X, however, they fly long haul flights. So they do like Japan, Honolulu, Australia. They do the stay over for long haul flights.
So you can't cross over, or you're only for AK?
You can cross over. You can apply to cross over, but
you have to apply.
Yeah, you have to apply to crossover. Or sometimes you can even go for it. Like they previously had interviews for Ajax, you can just go immediately over. But a lot of things have changed. So initially that for AK, why I like being in AK is that I can come home and see my family most of the time. So a lot of people and a lot of the seniors actually prefer staying there. In that sense, they can come and see their families. So instead of traveling for weeks or days and not seeing their loved ones and managing things at home, so AK kind of like gives you that opportunity. Yeah.
Now let's talk about your job in this time of MCO and CMCO, right? You are part of essential services. In fact, there were cabin crews on board the flight that brought Malaysians home from different parts of the world. But other than that, of course, in the early stages of MCO, a lot of other flights have been grounded and a lot of flights were cancelled. So tell us about some of the challenges that you faced having no work during MCO or CMCO. Yeah,
definitely. I think that the biggest challenge was initially not going to work and then not being able to do any of these things. And for me personally, it was trying to adapt to this new regime. But once our flights resumed in April, we had to adapt to the new challenges, which was the post-COVID-19 procedures. So there's new procedures that the airlines actually put out when they started flights back in April. It was a lot challenging for me in the sense where you had to, what we normally used to do, a regular routine, like you're basically used to it, it's completely different now. So they take a lot of precautionary measures. Yeah.
What did you have to go back for some sort of a training for these new SOPs in place?
No, we didn't actually have to go back to the training. They actually provided online training classes for us. So our workplace, we have a online social media and a workplace where the office actually regulates daily a lot of, updates a lot of guidelines, a lot of information that they received from a lot of health authorities, regulated government authorities, as well as World Health Organization and the Civil Aviation Organization. So we were daily being updated through our workplace. That gave us a bit more time to, prepare for in case we get called up for flight or go for.
But you know what? We've been watching the news all over the world, and a lot of flights were, and airlines had to close shop and everything. And AirAsia is still around. Did you have? I mean, like, if you don't mind me asking, were there any pay cuts or what happened?
So initially, we go by what's called our basics. So we do have our basics. They did have, we weren't flying, so we weren't getting paid when we fly, but they did pay us our basics. So I'm very, very thankful for that. They wouldn't call it pay cuts. They didn't cut our pay. So they just gave us our basics.
No, so normally a cabin crew will earn a basic and then they earn the commission based on the sectors that they fly. Is that true?
That's right. That's true.
Okay, so since you were grounded, you were only paid the basic.
Yeah, so I mean, it's still, to me, I could save a lot more since I'm at home. I'm not going anywhere. So
yeah.
Online shopping, I kind of just had to pay off of that.
JD as well.
There's something new.
Now, can you tell us about the SOPs in place now for cabin crews?
Okay, so the SOPs in place, the precautionary measures they take at work now, from the time that you leave your house, to the time that you enter the office, you have your face mask, right? And the office, the moment you enter, your face mask is on. They will do temperature checks at the office. And then right after that, you will sign on. So we used to sign on based on a desktop, but they provided what's called a contactless reporting system. So we are basically signing and reporting via our mobile phone. So we don't have to basically touch the desktop and, worry about that. We sign on our mobile phones through an app. After that, we would have briefing. So briefing, normally they've actually drawn lines around the table and on the table itself to maintain social distancing. And they've also regulated, and it's mandatory for us to have what's the PPEs, disinfectants, alcohol swipes, as well as hand soaps. We regulate this also when we're on board. So before we put on our gloves, we wash our hands, put on the gloves, put on the PPEs and everything else. And when we are doing transits or when we have to take it off, we also wash our hands. So they really make it a practice, like double our personal hygiene that we normally do on board. It also prevents us from like having personal contact with a lot of passengers, okay, when we're serving meals and food or our service. So they really do maintain a lot of these procedures. And I think one of the most safest things that they normally do would actually have the COVID-19 swab test. So we actually do have regular tests to enforce that, we don't feel afraid that whether I come home and, bringing this, if I'm bringing COVID back home or not, they do check on us. So I feel a lot safer when I fly these days. And I know my passengers are safe too. So yeah.
But yes, you feel a bit safer. I'm sure you're slightly worried as well. What would be your biggest fear having to go to work at this time?
Well, my biggest fear would actually basically be bringing home the disease to my family. I thought about it, and but given that AirAsia has been working aside a lot of these regulators and World Health Organization and International Civil Aviation, they are very, very stringent. So they really do assure you that if at all you do get it, there are procedures that you have to follow. If your passengers get it, there are procedures that are taken in place. They do take these steps, and that's what I admire about working with this company, is that they don't take chances. They don't take these risks. They are prepared for these kind of things, because that's what we do. Our passengers, our number one priority as cabin crew is to ensure the safety of you guys and ourselves, of course, mostly ourselves. So initially that worry was there, but when I saw a lot of the procedures that were taking place, I didn't have to worry, because I knew that, okay, there is a There is a contingency plan in place in the event that you do contract it. So yeah.
Is it uncomfortable wearing the PPE? Did you
yes.
have to wear your uniform inside and then the PPE?
Yes, we do. We have to. It's fine. Initially, I think the first time I tried it on, I felt like I was a doctor. An episode of Grey's Anatomy, and I was like, okay, bring out the
scalpels.
The scalpels, and yeah,
like, the walking around like this all over the place.
Yeah, I'm like, and like the moment you take it off, you like wash your hands.
Actually, you know what?
Yeah.
On social media, we saw some pictures of the AirAsia PPEs. Were they really red, and were they all like according to the AirAsia colors?
No, they weren't. The ones we have in place is green, like the basic PPEs that we actually have. The ones that were red, I think that was they were trying it out. They were just testing to see how it looked like, for us. Probably in the future we might have it. But the ones we have now is just the regulated. So, yeah.
And how often do you have to change the PPEs? You throw them away, right?
So every transit, we would have to change our PPEs, our gloves, and everything else. So we maintain that within every 4 hours, we have to take it out. So when we do cleaning or we're dealing with anybody who's either vomiting or any of that, immediately our procedures to, sterilize ourselves and change whatever we have and throw it away. Yeah.
So you are actually very safe.
Yeah.
The most safe
very, very
airport flight. Yeah.
Nothing lesser than that. Yes.
Okay.
Very,
but when you had to go back to work or when you had to report back for work, did your family fear for your health?
Well, no. They were concerned, but they knew that because I spoke to them about it and I said that, okay, AirAsia has these new regulations. So they were very on board with it, actually. And initially, when I left to work, they sterilized. And the moment I come back after work, like before I even entered the house, they would actually make sure that they spray my feet, spray my jacket, my hands. My trolley bag is outside. They really do, clean it. And like, I'll go in, like I'll basically head to the shower, take off everything, head to the shower, put it in a plastic bag, and they would take it and they wash it. And, okay, my mom is like very, very particular about it. So I was like, okay, I felt like, I was coming in and, being sterilized entirely. And I was like, okay, this feels like one of those movies, that you walk in and, before you enter the operation room, just, yeah.
But I guess we all have to sort of get used to this new norm isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a norm already. Whenever I go out, or it's you're getting used to it. It's like habits. You build these habits, and these habits are for a good reason. So yeah, just keep on practicing that.
Now, you have been flying during the CMCO period. What have you learned from this experience of overcoming challenges, especially working during a time of pandemic?
Um, I think there's a line between unnecessary fear and being uh, well prepared. Okay, so being well prepared is where your information is coming from. Okay, how you're going to deal with that information. Okay, and be rational. It teaches you to be rational about it rather than just fearing fake news or getting misinformed from a lot of people or social media out there. So uh, I've always had this belief of being prepared. Okay, and well, my job enforces it. You have to prepare. You have to know what you're doing, and you have to be sure of it. So initially, this overcoming these challenges, I guess, it's best to be updated, well informed, and know where your sources are coming from. Be vigilant at practicing your personal hygiene and your when you leave your house to go to work or when you come back. Like, just be more vigilant. That's it. It's as simple as that. And don't be paranoid. Don't be afraid of a lot of unnecessary things because fear does nothing. In fact, just make things a lot worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how we.
Were you glad to be back at work again? I mean, did you have a choice, or like did you volunteer yourself?
Well, it felt kind of awkward not flying for a couple of weeks, and then you get back on it, just like you kind of like you feel a bit
Rusty.
like a bit rusty, just a bit. But initially, when you first come in, you're getting used to a lot of things. Like, okay, I can't shake hands with this person. So I think one of the good things we have for AirAsia, we call it the ASEAN greeting. So when I introduce myself, instead of shaking hands or introducing, another way we can introduce ourselves is like, just say hi. So that it's very simple. So rather than you, it was kind of weird because every time I would approach the crew, I'd be like, hi, like, oh, okay, wait, hold on. It's an automatic response. And but they've enforced that, so each of us understand why we're doing it, and it's a form of respect. So it wasn't much of an issue coming back to work and then adapting back again. Just regulating the new procedures, the safety procedures. So yeah.
But I'm sure a lot of people are still worried about flying. Like the flights that you've done, were there a lot of passengers?
Well, I wouldn't say there was a lot of passengers, not like how we always used to carry. They did have their social distancing and all, and the passengers were actually very, very cooperative. And like, anything, they took it very seriously, and they didn't go out of the norm. They didn't take it for granted. So I mean, when you come on board or before you go for your flight these days, these are just heightened precautionary steps that you're going to be taking. So you're not just traveling like how you normally used to, laid back and, I'm going for flight. And, you have to be a little bit more prepared, right? Come a little bit more early, okay? Make sure you have your mask, your sanitizers, okay? Pack light, just pack light. It saves you the trouble, even when you're carrying your bags on board, your check-in bag, okay? They've already regulated the new weight for the check-in bags. Okay, you can go on AirAsia and check it out. Initially, just practice these very simple steps. Okay, you just have to keep doing it a little more often, but you don't have to fear. Literally.
Actually, how do you bring hand sanitizer? Or you bring a small hand sanitizer on what it's okay, right? But how do you do social distancing on a flight? And even when before you actually get on a flight, because I fly AirAsia a lot.
Or the boarding
everybody's really packed.
They have the seats that are blocked, okay, on board, and they do have the social distancing. So we do sit apart from each other, and they do mandate that when we were flying with some of our passengers. So there wasn't much issue because there wasn't a lot of passengers. Okay, I don't know for the next coming weeks how they're going to be operating in that sense because they're changing a lot of things over time, and there will be new regulations, and this is just a temporary norm. As simple as that. So in time to come, there'll be new things and new regulations that will be coming up, just to ensure in the meantime that they are certain that once this pandemic is over, we actually know what to do and what we have prepared to do when it starts. Yeah.
What is your advice to Malaysians as we near the end of, hopefully the end of CMCO? When would be the best time to fly again?
Well, my advice for Malaysians in the sense, when would be the best time to fly? Well, when they actually ensure that, the government officials are like, okay, we've had vaccines and we can fly again. And if you need to fly, like to go visit your family members, yeah, go ahead. I don't know about the holidays that if the places are open and they've already released the official statement saying that it's okay to fly, then yeah, I mean, you can. That's not much of an issue. Just take these precautionary steps. That's it. You don't have to worry about a lot of things. Just ensure that you have these heightened precautionary steps, and you're okay. You can fly. It's not that you can't, right? Just maintain
Are the airports slightly more normal again right now? Because at one point everybody was showing pictures of airports all being in darkness and everything.
Yeah, they do. Well, they have to save on electricity, Initially, don't waste electricity, okay? Go green. But yeah, the airports are slowly coming back in place, and they have their, it's coming back to life again, once everything is already opening up. So not much of an issue. It's just going back to it. Yeah.
So travel only if you need to. Bring hand sanitizers. Yeah. I'm pretty sure the airports all smell of hand sanitizers anyway. And,
no, just bring your own. Just bring your own. The airports may have hand sanitizers, but always have your own stuff, right? When you travel on board as well, and just take care of your personal hygiene. That's it. Be a bit more, cleaner, a lot cleaner.
And I think
know whether you're touching.
Your advice earlier about being fearful. You have to know what you're being fearful about. Read up more about it. Read up through correct channels, and then maybe you won't be so fearful about it.
That's right. Don't. I strongly believe that a lot of the social media out there, I think there's a lot of unnecessary fear to just promote more, response or more views on these platforms. But where this information is coming from, who it is coming from, and how it's being said, I believe that if you're receiving this information on how to deal with this thing, then you have no reason to fear. Okay, fear comes from people who don't understand, don't want to take the initiative to understand, and you can't say that during this time in this kind of situation. You can't say that, oh, I didn't know. I'm afraid. Find out, ask. Okay, where's the source of that information coming from, and regulate it, practice it. That's all you got to do.
Be cautious, be vigilant, but not be fearful.
That's right. Take things, assess the condition.
Andrew, what if you get a passenger who's coughing up a storm in your flight? What will happen?
We have to follow our basically our safety procedures that is prepared for us. We take down their names, their tests, and everything else. We would put them behind. There are seats behind that we put them in, and then we regulate, and we have to inform the government authorities.
Oh, but they still get to fly.
Sorry?
But they still get to be on board.
If they're already on board, yes. But initially, if they're coughing even before, the government authorities would handle them initially. So they would do tests. They do have the tests. So like I said, there are contingency plans that they have prepared already for everyone. So there's no reason for you to be fearful. If you know that you're sick, okay, just stay at home. Stay at home. Do yourself a favor, stay at home. Don't just work on being healthy. That's what I've been doing for the past couple of months. Aside from sleeping and sleeping well, okay, eat good food. All right. I don't know what would you want to do, meditate, work out, do breathing exercises, stuff like that. This time that we've had alone, or this time that we've had being at home, I think it's given us the opportunity to kind of really ground ourselves and find out who we are as people, or our individual selves, progress. We've got time to do the things we said we couldn't do. Put it this way. So I think the health part is something as an individual, as you as a person, should be concerned about. If you're already on smoking, or quit, right? These are simple steps that you take so that you don't like cough. Like initially, I know some smokers don't cough, but I know some smokers that do. So you've got ample time to take care of yourself, and taking care of yourself, I think, should be a responsibility that everybody